Hey guys, Moneyman300 back for some more videos, and this time I want to talk track types and track and car types. You've heard me mention a few times in a couple of there's been a couple of questions around that, so I thought it would make a good video. And this is probably something I should have done a long time ago, kind of part of my tips and tricks series. But I want to talk about the different types of tracks and the terminology that I use to refer to them, so that when you see them in other videos, you'll know more about what I'm saying, and then the types of cars that are suited for those tracks. So let's hop into it here. What I want to do is just go into Rivals, and we'll just run through the tracks. So essentially, what I see, and this is my opinion of things, and I think it's pretty close to what other people view it. They may use different terms and terminology. I know Rock King and I use roughly the same terms, but there's 3 to 5 different types. I mean, and I'll explain why I say 3 to 5 in a minute. But there's 3 to 5 different types of tracks here that then has you build 3 to 5 different types of cars to meet those tracks. So it's always good to have a car that's suited for the track that you're driving. Now, certainly you can go out there, have fun, do some different things, but it's better if you're the better driver you get, the more you can bring cars that aren't really suited for that track to it. So and still do well. When you start to bring cars that aren't suited for a track in there, and you're not sure, it generally leads itself to accidents and running into other people and doing things like that, which if you're doing single player, that's fine, but in multiplayer, that's can be difficult. When I'm hopping onto, we're in Catalunya and somebody's got a muscle car that they just flat out can't control on that track, it's pretty frustrating for the other drivers. So I always try to make sure that I'm bringing a car to a track that I can drive and that I can control, within my abilities. So let's talk about those types of tracks. So the 3 basic ones, and then I'll talk about 2 others. So the 3 basic ones are momentum, grip, and speed, and then 2 additional I'm going to throw in there are super speed and oval, because they're a little bit more, I wouldn't say in depth, but they kind of require their own thing. They're a little more unique than the other 3. So let's talk about. I'm going to go through each one of these tracks, and I'm going to talk about what, in my opinion, they are. So I can tell you right now, the first 6 here, which are just Alps and Alps Reverse, these are what I refer to as momentum-based tracks. And what that means is there really aren't any tight turns. They're mostly high-speed sweeper type turns that are there, and you need a car that's really well balanced and can handle those high turns. So if you look in D-Class, and the way you can tell the cars that work there is you just go into Rivals and hit Y on one of the tracks and look at the leaderboard and see what people are running. When the game first came out, people had to figure that out, but it's been out so long now that you can just look. So and I built 2 of these. I built the SZ and the Celica. So as you can see, for a momentum-based track, at least for Alps, is the Toyota Celica and the Alfa Romeo SZ. There's going to be others. We finally got to a BRZ, and a Civic 97. You're going to start to get out once you start getting some of those, but by and large, and the longer the track. So there are 2 different types, and if you really want to get specific, and I don't really want to get that far into the detail, but we'll talk a little bit about it. There's really 2 different types of momentum cars. There's speed cars that lend itself a little more to speed, and ones that lend itself a little more to handling. So a track like Alps Festival, which is a little bit longer than, say, Club, is going to have more of a speed-based momentum car versus a handling-based momentum car. So just understand that, and if you want to know which is which, just come in here and take a look. But you can use, especially if you're racing multiplayer, like you got the Alfa Romeo SC, you can definitely use that on Club. You can use it on 03 and do well in multiplayer. If you're out there trying to set top 100, top 50, top 10 times, you're going to have to be a lot more specific what you do. But if you just want to set decent times, you're going for top 1% or whatever your goals are, you could pretty much use the same cars across all 3 of these. And if I look at stab plats here, you're going to see a very similar, and a few other cars that get sprinkled in out here. Now, that's because these are both slightly longer. You can see 3.63 miles and 3.08 miles. Come over here and we have a 2.5 mile track, and all of a sudden now look what happens. So now we have a different type. This is our short track. We'll call it our short track momentum car. So That's going to be your Lotus Elans. Well, not Lotus Elans. It's going to be your Mugen CRXs on this one. You'll see the Mazda Miata is a big one, the MX-6 Miata. And if you even want to get more specific, you'll start to see some differences in the reverses, but I usually don't worry about that too much. So those are momentum. Those three right there. So there are these six. I call it three. They're going both ways. But anyway, those are momentum tracks. And so then moving on. I'm just going to go right down the list, and then I'll talk about what each one is. So Bathurst is a speed. That's a speed track. And if you look at the type of car that's on here now in D class. It's a little tough to tell sometimes. The Ferrari 250 Cali is a speed car. The Elan has two types of builds, and you could probably build all three builds, but these are speed Elan builds. These are going to be cars hitting, around 150 miles an hour on the straightaway is kind of what you're going for in D class. Now, you still need some handling, right? So that's why some of these cars are good, but you'll see a pretty good mix in here. Mustang in here, you'll see the Nova, the Challenger's really good in D class. There's that Javelin that we're using in the multiplayer series. So you'll see a good mix, right? And you'll see the Mini all over the place because the Mini can do everything in D class. But in general, this is your speed class. Now, that Mini isn't generally the same Mini that people use on like Catalunya. At least it shouldn't be. There's different builds you can do for the same car. Like so, like with the Elan, there's a few cars that lend themselves well to multiple types of builds. And the Mini is one of those. The Elan is one of those. So it's not specific to a car. And some cars just work well on the momentum track, some work well on the speed track, some you can build both ways. It's such a trial and error type of thing, and there's lots of thought and debate on the formula that makes a great car, but really it's about trying them and those things. So speed track, these three Catalunya, these are your grip tracks. I mean, these three are definitely grip tracks. You're gonna see Mini, and some Elans. Miata, which also you can build different ways, so and you're going to see that across all of these. And in the same way, as you go up through the classes, you'll be able to see, okay, that's one that people typically build as a grip car, that's one that's usually speed, and some are able to do both. So you can see here, same deal. And then sometimes the shorter Catalunya will have a little different look to it, like you'll get a couple other cars that'll sneak in there in some other classes because it's a really short track. I mean, it's a mile track as opposed to almost 3 miles here, close to 2, and then you're down to a mile. So really small track, really grippy, accelerate type cars. Accelerate probably isn't an actual word, but whatever. Indy GP, this again is going to be a speed track. Now some of the momentum and grip can work here because you have two parts of this track. You got the long, you got the big straightaway, and you got a pretty grippy turning section in there. So you get a little bit of a balance and a little bit of mix of cars in here, but in general, it's a speed. But you'll see people use grip and momentum cars in there. So not every track fits perfectly into these categories, except this one. This is obviously oval, and you're gonna have almost always there's a specific couple of cars that work on the oval. It was kind of cool in D class. There's multiple. I built the, I did the Eclipse. Could have done again, there's that Alfa Romeo, which is multifaceted, and so is the BRZ. So, but these are way different builds. Generally, no brakes on there. A lot of things that are just different about an oval build. And you just have like a specific car or two that you don't run on anything but the oval, just because the builds are that much different. I mean, sure, you could take your speed car out here and be okay with it, but it's nice to have one or two cars just specifically for the oval. So that's its own class of car, in my opinion. Laguna Seca is a grip track, and you're going to see it when I go in here. Mini. They're all there. So Laguna Seca, just like the Catalunyas, is a grip track. Bugatti Circuit is mostly a grip track also. You'll see in some cases they go up higher in classes that some of the speed type cars work well here too, but there's some pretty big turns, and generally speaking, the grips do better. Now these next two, Old Le Mans and Lasarth, these are what I would call super speed tracks. So your speed car will do okay, but the straightaway is so long that your speed car is generally going to top out. The speed cars, although are built for speed, also have some level of handling in them as well to be able to be okay, like on an Indy GP where you have those turns. Well, on something like, let's look at Old Le Mans, it's gonna look a lot different. Like, you didn't see the 70 Camaro really anywhere else, and it is pretty dominant here. And you're putting all parts on it. You're doing nothing with tires, nothing with anything else. This is just finding the car that allows you to make it the fastest, and it's going to be a beast to handle in the turns. And that's what does well in these tracks. And I call that super speed because that car's just built pure horsepower. I mean, nothing else. You're just going straight horsepower on those builds. So then we get back to the Long Beach tracks. This is primarily grip on all three of these. You may be able to get away with the momentum car on here also, but primarily the grip cars do well, do the best on Long Beach. So Nürburgring. So this is interesting. So Nürburgring plus GP, I mean, who knows? This track's so big. Generally speaking, though, momentum cars are what you're going to, and it's your speed momentum car. So the same as your longer Alps, and then we'll get to Prague in a second, long Prague. You'll see the Celica a lot in here, probably, potentially the Alfa Romeo SZ, but you'll see a lot of cars in here. And it happens to be whatever you can drive clean for that amount of time. So it's kind of a different. I don't build anything different. I just use the slightly faster momentum cars like the Celica and the SZ on here. You'll see people using speed cars in here. If you got a good handling speed car, like you see the 250 Cali popping up in there. So really a lot of different things can work on there. But I think it's best suited for the momentum stuff, but it's whatever you can drive clean there. So Prague. So Prague is very similar to, let's do GP. Nürburgring GP is a grip track. That thing has some crazy turns in it, and the better grip you have in acceleration, the better you're going to be on that track. So that fits in back with the Long Beach and the Catalunya and the Laguna Seca. Prague is very similar to the Alps, although you will see different cars do well here. The cars you have for Alps will work just fine on Prague in multiplayer. You can run them, you'll be good. But remember, the Alfa Romeo SZ did really well on that. Now, generally, as you get up through the classes, you'll see them more closely represent each other. D class is just kind of a little bit, a bit different of a beast. Like my guess is if I went into, let's say, C, and I looked at stab plats on one of these, I'll probably start seeing some Subarus. Yep. So you see the Subaru WRX, the Mercedes 190E, and then if I go over here to Prague full, my guess is this is going to be similar. D-Class is just, it's different, right? Yeah, Subaru WRX. You don't see as many of the 190Es. That's more of an Alps build, but they start to get close. As you go up the classes, these tracks start to more represent each other in the cars that they do. But in D-Class, it's a little bit different. But generally speaking, the cars you build for the longer Alps tracks work also for the longer Prague. And then the shorter Prague is more about the same as the circuit track. Now here you see the Minis start to do okay. The Mazdas really dominate here. So, but the Mazdas do really well on Alps Club also. So, and then the reverses, I just do the same thing. I mean, most likely they work about the same. It's the hills that are different, right? You're going up and down the different hills. Club though probably is what's interesting is, so the Alans do really well on the reverse side of this thing, and the Calis, but yeah, they're just different. I don't build a lot of cars for reverse though, to be honest with you. Road America. So Road America gonna have different ones for these different tracks. So these are the Road America full, the 4-mile version of this track is best suited for speed type cars. You want to have some handling in there because there's good, but you can see even the 70 Camaros up there, your Alans, the Nova, the 250 Cali, a lot of speed type cars on that. Should see the same thing for Alt. Yep. A lot of the same stuff, the Elan, and those are speed Elan builds like we did for Bathurst. So, and then we get to Road America East. This is a super speed track. So this more closely represents cars. So that 70 Camaro, it looks like there's a couple other creep in here. The Novas look like they do real well. Maybe we'll build that Nova out for this when I get there. We're real close. I think that's the next set of tracks I'm going to do. So that would be fun. I'll build out that Nova for that. So this one, and then there's like I think there was 2 versions of that. So I'm thinking of the tracks coming up. So now once you get to the west though, now we're back to a grip car. You can see the Minis start to dominate. So your west and your West Alt, Your smaller tracks are generally done by are generally grip tracks, so you're gonna run your grip cars on those. Road Atlanta Long is normally a speed track, but it's a handling, what I call handling. So you want something with top speed, but you really want to be able to handle some of the other sides of that track as well. So you won't see quite as many pure muscle cars. You'll see a few, but as you see, the Elans and the 250 Calis a little bit smaller, but still fast cars that handle, that are just a little bit more nimble, do pretty well there. But in general, that's a speed. This one's difficult to classify. I would throw this one closer to a momentum track, the short version of Road Atlanta. So this is going to be similar to what your short prog build and your Alps Club build. So this is more represents you go in here and you're not seeing a whole lot of muscle cars in here. The minis are your grip cars, so at least in this class. So maybe the grip cars work okay here too. You see the Mazda MX-5s, which do well in Alps Club. So I would go more with the short track momentum car for this than anything else. The Sebrings, I classify all three of these as speed tracks, and you're going to see that when we go in here. Muscle cars again, 250s, Elans, this is speed Elans. You'll see some minis sprinkled in there too, because you can make minis really fast in D class. So you're going to see the same thing across all three of these too. Same types of cars work well in each one of these. And I think this one even, I don't. So yeah, the Speed Mini evidently does really well. The Mini just makes it so hard to talk about the builds. But generally speaking, if you have a car that works good on one of these, it's going to work good on all three. This one is a little shorter, so a more handling speed car is going to work a little better there than on the other two. Doesn't have the long straightaway that these two have. So Silverstone Grand Prix, these are closer to grip tracks. So you're going to see the minis in here, some Elans, and these are not the as much of the speed ones. Now, having said that, it's an interesting mix in here. You can use, if you have really good, like the Challenger and cars like that, they're just handle really well and are fast, they'll work here too. So, if we look at each one of these, this one just almost all mini. So this one's more grip than the first one, and then I don't remember what this one was. So this one's a little bit more open, so you'll see some of the Novas and some of those things come in. So it's kind of an in-betweener track, and it's weird because it's in between like grip and speed. The momentum don't do quite as well here, but you could go either way on these. I think it depends on the track. I would probably use a grip car, on the shorter one, and then start to lean more towards speed as they get a little bit, on the bigger side. So kind of whatever you're comfortable driving on those. Spa, this leans towards the speed, and you'll see that in here. Now what's interesting is that the Toyota Celicas do well here, which is a momentum car. So, and you see an Acura Integra in there, which is also generally a momentum car. That's because there are quite a few, if you look at the track, quite a few of those, you got some high-speed sweepers in there and things like that. But I would take like the 250 Cali or the Elan in here, if I was going to race in there. That kind of smaller speed car build is, I think, best suited for this. And I think you'll see that as you get up higher in the other classes. So moving on. So I believe this is all grip. Yep. I'm not going to talk about that a lot. That's a grip track. So use your grip cars there, your minis, your things that are built for those particular tracks. Top Gear East, and I believe there's East. This is grip. So these are all, most of the Top Gear tracks are all grip in here, except for the loop. So the loop track is a super speed. Again, you'll see, this is very similar to the Road America loop. So same types of cars are going to do well there. You see the 70 Camaro start to fall off a little bit here because it does require just a little bit more handling than you can get with that Camaro, but you do see them pop up in here, and you even see some minis in here. So kind of a variation of cars that'll run there, and same way on the other way around. The Yas tracks. So in general, Yas tracks are grip acceleration type build. So you're going to want cars that grip well and that accelerate well, and you can see that here. The minis. Now what's interesting is you do see some 250 Calis come in here. Now some of these are different builds though. like this may very well be a grip built 250 cal. I wouldn't know, you know, without being able to look at it. But you do see some people able to do well with kind of the smaller muscle cars. So a smaller speed build in there, and then we'll go down to a little bit shorter version. And since it's more open, you start to see some of the speed. So this is another instance where these tracks are kind of in between speed, because that's got long straightaway on it here, and the speed really helps you there, in between the speed and the grip. So again, I like to use the small speed cars in there when that presents itself. Now we get over to this one. That's a grip track. So you get to the south, which is 1.47 mile track, and it doesn't have quite the long straightaway. It really lends itself to grip. And then the last one is the Alt. The Alt also tends to lend itself to grip more so than the original, and that's because of the size of the straightaway out there. You don't see a really long, quite as long a straightaway as you do over here in the Yas Full. So Yas Alt is a little bit more, and then this one, I believe, the small, usually when they're small like that, they're grip. So that's grip. And Test Track is generally grip also because of how small it is. Although you see a lot, these are some momentum. Actually, I take that back. These are momentum cars. So, you know, where you're carrying momentum through the garage and doing all that stuff. So, yeah. I'd have to look. It'd be interesting. Let's look up in the next class up and see. See if the Subarus are pretty good over here. My guess is that, oh wait, I don't want to race it. We'll look at it. So yeah, so this is going to be so interesting. I just haven't driven that track a whole lot, but that is going to be momentum along with the Progs and the other ones. So I don't know if it's short momentum or longer. It looks like it's more of a speed momentum build. So that is all of the. That's in a nutshell. You know, that's how I go through and kind of figure out what it is I'm going to build on each one of these and the type of car that you need. You know, and if we talk about it in general, a grip car is going to generally that's going to be built all grip without a ton of horsepower. You're going to tires first. You're taking the weight out. As much weight as you can get out of there, as much tire compound as you can get. Hopefully you got all the weight out and race tires, and you're going to focus on all of your handling parts before you do anything horsepower related, because you want acceleration. So torquey cars are really good. You're going to put parts on that increase torque. Right? So you want that acceleration and that grip for those corners. So that's really important in a grip car. In momentum based cars is more of a balance between, you're going to go probably more of a middle tire compound, sometimes no tire compound. You're going to cars usually slightly bigger, and you're not as worried about weight, so you might not be getting all the weight out of it. You may not be getting any weight out of it in the case of some of the Alps tracks. It just kind of depends on the car a little bit, but it's an in-between. You're going to want speed because they have some decent straightaways, and you want a little bit of torque and power to get up the hills, because they tend to have hills like in Prague and in the Alps. But it's kind of a tweener build out there. So, and camber's really good, really big on tracks like that. Camber's in this game is big and everything, but that a lot of negative camber in momentum car builds, because you're gonna have a lot of high speed turns. It really helps you grip those turns. So and then speed cars are obviously more towards the horsepower, right? You're in the lower classes, you're generally on stock tires, and a lot of times stock widths. Maybe you're adding some width in there. Usually go width before compound in your speed builds. And then but you want to get horsepower. You're going for hitting a certain top speed on the main straightaway. Gearing is important on all of these, but just trying to get as much speed as you can out of it, but still being able to handle. So that's why you're putting some width on your tires. And as you go up through the classes, you'll get to a point where you're in S class and you're going to have pretty much race tires on everything anyway, and you're just getting horsepower build. And you'll see some of these classes, as you get up there, the cars start to narrow down a little bit and they become more multifaceted, and that they can do work on multiple tracks. So it's really balanced out, and early on, minus the Mini, and then it starts to kind of narrow in, and actually get up to S class, and S is a pretty cool class just because there's so many things that work really well there. And then super speed, you just pile on as much horsepower as you can on there, and you don't care about handling at all. I mean, that's really what that's about. You're trying to find a car in in a specific class that allows you to get that in D class 180 185 mile an hour, and then on up from there on that long straightaway. So you're just going all horsepower. And then oval, you're just turning left the whole time, so it's just a different way to build a little bit for oval. Your roll bars are usually slightly different. You're still using camber. You don't worry about brakes at all. Gearing is completely different, and you're trying to really tune that gearing for the oval. So just a completely different build on its own. So I think that wraps it up. I know I talked a lot about that, but I think it's really important to have that background, especially as I go through and build all these car stage tracks, so you'll have an understanding of what I mean when I say momentum or grip or speed or super speed or oval. So hopefully all this helps. If you have any questions or things that maybe I failed to cover in this, please ask in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to respond. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.